Alright, so in this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you what you can do with the Multiband Dynamics tool in Ableton. So I've created a drum loop out of that 808, a hi-hat, and a snare. So I've already put in a MIDI note at G0. I'm going to grab operator. Now I'm going to just draw in some harmonics on the sub here, and I'm going to turn on oscillator B, make it a saw wave, and cut out some frequencies. All right, now I'm going to turn on oscillator C. It sounded pretty cool when the volume levels swept, so I'm going to put an envelope that does that. I'm going to map the envelope to oscillator C by clicking map and clicking the oscillator C, and I'm going to set it to loop or sync, and I'm going to set the value to quarter notes. I'm going to turn up the attack, and this value right here is the minimum at the bottom of the envelope where it starts, and the max is where it reaches. So I'm going to increase that a bit for more of a gentle effect, and I'm going to turn down the max. All right. Now I'm going to drop an EQ on the channel so I can take out the sub frequencies. I'm going to set one to a steep high pass filter and set it to 100 Hertz. I'm also going to turn on the LFO and do saw down, sync, and set this to quarter notes as well. Turn the amount up all the way. Turn off all of these destinations, which are the pitch for each oscillator. You don't want it to affect that unless you do. In case of you do, you leave them on. Anyway, I'm going to set it to destination B, volume A. So now it's more plucky. To make the sound a bit nicer, I'm going to use Serum Effects. And if you don't have Serum, you can get it on Splice with a payment plan. So it's really affordable. And if you don't know what Splice is, go to splice.com. It's a great tool for any producer. Now, I'm turning on Hyper, which is, it basically adds multiple voices for the sound, and it detunes them. And I'm going to turn on Dimension, which is a very short decay for the sound, so it kind of gives it some width. And I'll let you see, this is what it sounds like when it's all the way up and the sound ends. There's still like a tail. Turn it all the way down, and there's less of one, like really like none. So you can see that it's really adding some width. I'm going to turn on the chorus here, switch it to high pass filter. I'm going to turn the delay down and the depth down. All right, I'm going to add some reverb. And some distortion, actually. All right, so this is a trick with the distortion in Serum Effects. You're getting a little bit of bonuses rather than just the multiband expander tutorial here. So I grouped everything here, and I'm going to put an external instrument. And now with the external instrument, I'm going to set it to the instrument 9 rack, which is what we have going on here. It automatically selects Serum because it's the only thing that can receive MIDI sends. And if it wasn't on your channel, you would click here and then you would select Serum Effects. All right, now that that's set, Serum is receiving MIDI. All right, so this trick is to basically shape the volume of the sound. So you select X Shaper here. You go into Edit A, and then you make this completely flat just by double clicking and dragging to the right. Now you turn the drive all the way down, and we have no sound. Okay, so now you grab LFO 1, and because we set up the external instrument, it's gonna receive MIDI, and it's gonna actually activate the LFO. Now we don't want it to be going down like that, we want it to be plucking, so I'm just gonna shape the LFO like this. Okay. Now for the Multiband Dynamics part of the tutorial. Taking Multiband Dynamics, I'm dropping it on the channel. So on Multiband Dynamics, you have 3 different bands, and you have the high band, mid band, and low band. You can change the value of the high band and the low band, and the mid is everything in between. I'm going to set the low band to 80 Hertz. And I want to show you that the EQ8 doesn't exactly take everything out. See, it's set to 100 Hertz, and you're still getting sound. So now you don't want any of that because it's going to muddy up the 808. So I turn both of the input value down to -24 decibels and the output value down to -24 decibels. And you can see that there are volume knobs for the input of each band and volume knobs for the output of each band. Now we have no sub muddying up the 808, and we're going to move on. And so in this tab B, it is the below tab. And what that does is it will increase the volume of the sound based on the threshold and the ratio you have set. Just to give you an example, I'm going to turn it to 1 to infinite, which is all the way up, and I'm just going to increase this till you can tell what's going on. On the left here, you have +8 decibels. And that value is how much it's boosting the sound when it goes below the threshold. I'm going to do the same thing for the high band. I don't even have to change the threshold because it's quiet. You can see that, you can hear that it's bringing out the reverb. The above band is exactly the opposite of that. It will decrease the volume of the sound based on the ratio and the threshold. So I'm going to set it to -infinite and just bring it down. Just so it's barely doing anything. You can see that it's +7 when it goes below and -8 when it gets up here. Do the same thing for the mid band. And now our sound's a lot more quiet, but it's squished. So what I'm going to do is when I produce, I like to have my mids around -16. I'm just going to turn it up. Let's see how it sounds in the mix. Yeah, we got to turn that up more. So it's about -16. I'm going to move to the high band, which it sounds like we have none, but you can bring it back with this. It's at -31, which normally I'd like my highs around -21 to -18. You can really see what it's doing to the sound now. Alright, so on the right here we have output volume, which is just the volume for the whole thing, the time, and the amount. The amount is the dry wet, how much you want to mix it in. And now the time knob affects this right here. So T is for time, which is the attack and release of the compressor. So the attack is the amount of time it takes for the sound to be compressed, and the release is the amount of time it takes the sound to get from how low it's compressed to how high it's going to be. I'll give you a better view of that with a compressor. All right, so now I'm going to grab a compressor and drop it on the channel. And I already have two sends here at the top of my tracks, which is for the snare and for the kick. I'm going to squash those again. Now, on our instrument, I have the compressor. I'm going to click this pi here, and I'm going to click sidechain and get the audio from the kick sidechain. I'm going to turn up the ratio all the way, and I'm going to make this attack 0.05 milliseconds, and I'm going to make the release 10 milliseconds. At the bottom here, you have different views for what it's doing. In this view, you can see the best. So now, you can really see what the attack and the release does. So if I turn the release all the way up, it doesn't even get to full volume. The attack is how long it takes to minus the volume. So now it's not even really doing anything. I'm going to set it back to like 0.5, and then I'm going to bring the release back down. So RMS and peak in the Multiband Dynamics is the same thing as peak and RMS in the compressor. The RMS smooths out the transition between the compression. So with RMS on, it looks like this. And with peak on, it looks like this. So I'm going to leave RMS on the multiband. I duplicated the compressor and just set it to the snare side chain. So Multiband Dynamics has a stock preset in Ableton. It's called OTT, and it beefs up your sound. So with it, it sounds a bit crazy, but if you turn the amount down, it really brings all the frequencies to life. So that's what Multiband Dynamics does. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Okay, so I forgot to show you a trick with Multiband Dynamics, and I'm gonna make a pluck noise, and I'm just gonna make one real quick. Okay, so I've created a little bit of a pluck noise here on operator. I just have a couple harmonics in the wave section. I turned the sustain all the way down, just left the decay at 600 milliseconds. I did a square wave and cut out the high frequencies, and I just added a saw on top of that. I turned up the spread to 39%. This also has a sustain of negative infinite. Now I'm going to add some hyper and some reverb. Okay, so with Multiband Dynamics, or OTT, I'm just going to use OTT for this example. It's going to really make your pluck more drastic and increase the tail of that reverb. Without it. With it. And here's an example.